It's 2021. We made it. Hopefully, we're recording this 2 weeks beforehand, and a lot of bad things could happen. So we are doing, as we do at usually it's the last episode of the year or the first episode of the new year. We are doing something that you guys voted for over the Thanksgiving Black Friday weekend. And this one was a runaway hit, as I expected it to be. It was my pick of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with 72% of the vote. Scott's Not Another Teen Movie had a pretty decent 20% of the vote. And then Brian's pitiful Fired Up got like 8% of the vote. Just a pity vote, probably from Brian himself. It's always possible.
I don't know how to vote, but I'm glad someone tried to support me.
We know. You live in Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, political humor part 2. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I really only wanted to watch this movie because there was a show on Disney Plus called Prop Culture, where each episode focuses on the host of the show goes around and tries to find props from a specific movie and like finds these old vintage practical effect props. And they did an episode for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and I was like, man, I haven't watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in like a good 10, 15 years. And, you know, the scenes that they were showing, I'm like, man, this movie was really fun as a kid. So I figured, hey, it looks like it's fun. It's got a shit ton of practical effects, and it was based on a story by Brian Yasna and Stuart Gordon.
Yeah,
so like
crazy.
Like this has to be good for horror movie night. And you know, we're about to start recording the episode, so I don't know how the quality of this episode will be, but I didn't hate my time rewatching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
No.
I mean, you can't.
It was okay.
You can't dislike the movie. I mean, I don't think that as an adult you need to love it, but I think that it's like, you know, it's a good time. And the practical effects still hold up because they're practical effects. And basically anything with Matt Frewer in it, I'm down. Like, I fucking love Matt Frewer. He's even playing the biggest asshole in the movie. He is so fucking funny and charming with every line that he says.
Yeah. I will say something about this trilogy, and there's two actually Disney trilogies that this has happened to. Is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, everyone knows, everyone loves it. Honey, I Blew Up the Baby, as much as I loved it as a child, wasn't a very good movie, so it left a bad taste in people's mouths. So not a lot of people watched Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, which I think is also a very good movie.
Yeah,
and
Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves is really funny, and I already know what you're about to say. Are you about to compare this to Aladdin? Yeah, Aladdin. Yes. The third Aladdin movie is so much better than the second Aladdin movie.
I didn't even know there was a third Aladdin movie.
Exactly, because Return of Jafar just was a... It was a movie.
A dud, dude. No, like I remember that was like a direct-to-video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I still think of the Thor interview as a 30-year-old man. I think of the Thor interview at least twice a month.
Oh, yeah.
Scott, have you seen the third one?
I didn't know.
So at their wedding, he's just interviewing himself, playing a bunch of people, and one of them is him as Thor. And he's like, and you, sir, what's your name? Thor. Thor? Well, it hurts. And it is like my favorite dumb joke ever.
That's awful. It's just funny the shit that lives rent-free in our heads, you know?
Oh, my God. And, you know, when we talk about what we watched this week, there's something that's been living rent-free in my head since last night. But anyway, so...
Oh, yeah.
So when
we'll talk.
Yeah, when I started this... It's the perfect episode to talk about it because it's just like the Disney episode of our show.
It's what Matt's been waiting for 289 episodes.
The movie starts off with, you know, one of my favorite early 90s tropes of animated credit sequence, which I forgot that this had an animated credit sequence. And it has the theme song, which is kind of catchy because it's stolen, and the composer got sued for stealing the song Powerhouse and using it for the theme song. And it's not like it's an obscure song. We all know the song Powerhouse.
Do we?
Yes.
Powerhouse, it's a powerhouse. Power, house.
It's a very famous piece of like classical score that's used in cartoons all the time. That's like da 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 da. Like it's any time that like a cartoon character is like working, it plays that song. And if you listen to the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids score, it is heavily that piece of music. So I don't know what James Horner thought he was going to sneak by on this.
He's James fucking Horner. He was like, my name will make it okay.
We talked about Rick Moranis literally last week with our Ghostbusters 2 episode. But, like, is this my favorite Rick Moranis role? No. Is this arguably the role he was born to play?
Also,
Absolutely.
no.
Rick Moranis is a genre, and I don't know what genre he is. It's like not slapstick, but it's the closest thing I can compare it to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's just his own genre of movie.
So the crazy thing is that he was the third choice for this role. The first person that they pitched this to was Chevy Chase, which would have been terrible.
Jesus
like
Christ.
just an awful.
You know,
yeah.
how did Chevy Chase ever get to be in family movies? Like, he's
I have
not
no
a good
clue.
actor. He's a fucking asshole on set.
For whatever reason, I know why, but for whatever reason, like Vacation was not meant to be a family movie, but it just became the beloved family movie.
Yeah.
Like it has so much shit in it where it's crazy that it's a family movie.
Yeah, because
you
it's
know?
a hard R movie. Like they kill a lot of people trying to get to that to that amusement park. But then the other person that they pitched it to was John Candy, and this is
That also
this
would
is
have sucked.
the second time. And this is why I love John Candy. John Candy just seems like a good dude in general. But this is the second time that John Candy has helped out his boy Rick Moranis and said, I'm not right for this role, but I know who would kill it. Because John Candy was also pitched the role that Rick Moranis plays in the Ghostbusters movies. And he was like, I don't know why you're trying to cast me when Rick Moranis is right there. He's right there.
I don't think that Rick Moranis is an actor. Like, I just feel like that's why John Candy is his manager. We're just like, okay, so he starts shooting. Oh, you sure? Because you could hire someone else, and I don't think I'm right for the role.
Great, cut. Print it.
So here's the thing, like, because at the beginning of this pandemic, I started reading a ton of books about comedy for whatever reason. Like, that was like a real comfort to me. And I learned that, like, Rick Moranis was kind of like, I mean, as punk rock as Canadian gets, I guess, but he was like kind of like a rebel in Canada.
I mean,
like with
He got punched in the face this year.
What?
Yeah, that's true.
Who would
yeah,
punch him in the face?
Some random dude in New York and the internet just tracked that motherfucker down and was like, how fucking dare you?
Yeah, okay. So that, you know, I'm usually against doxing assholes on the internet, even when they're assholes, but that totally deserved. That's that and punch. If you punch Rick Moranis, you need to get doxed. If you are a Nazi, you need to get punched. Like, those are the two things that I live by as far as punching goes.
No, for sure. But supposedly, so like the most famous thing for a long time that, you know, Rick Moranis was known for was like the Strange Brew thing from SCTV of like the two like drunk Canadian guys that just. So what I ended up learning this year was the origins of that is hilarious, which is that Rick Moranis was like this up-and-coming comedy guy, and he gets hired for SCTV, and it's his first time working in Canadian television. And he finds out that Canadian television has a rule that every show that they produce has to have 10 minutes for every hour that is exclusively Canadian content. And he was like, what the fuck does that mean? We're all Canadians starring in a show. The whole show is exclusively Canadian content. But they were like, no, it has to be exclusively Canadian content. So he's like, I'll take care of it. You guys go home. And like him and his friend just set up a camera and we're like, what are the most offensively stereotypical things we can say about Canada for 10 straight minutes just to like take a shit on this stupid law that we don't think matters? And then it became like the biggest thing for SCTV was like this thing that was kind of an insult to like Canadian culture. So it's like, you know what? When I look at Rick Moranis, I don't imagine the guy going, you know what? Fuck you and your stupid rules. Like he definitely seems like the guy that's like, yes, sir, please just don't yell at me. Like he seems like me anytime I'm pulled over for any traffic violation. Just very complacent and compliant and quiet. The original script, when I was doing a bunch of research on this, was that the original script, there was a fifth kid who was going to die during the sprinkler sequence.
Ooh.
That got cut very early, but Stuart Gordon was supposed to direct it.
Yeah.
He actually got really sick, and they had to bring in a replacement director. And the thing that really sucks is that the replacement director was like, yo, tone down all these special effects. And it's like, no, turn it up. So there's stuff that we didn't get that was in the original script, even more special effects heavy.
I can't even imagine what this would look like if it had more special effects.
Yeah. But it's so we jump into the movie. Obviously, we all know the premise of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids because, like a good movie, it tells you right in the title the whole premise of the movie. Rick Moranis accidentally builds a shrinking machine and shrinks his kids and the neighbor kids. And it's, as a kid, I never realized how brilliant this is. But, like, the idea that this entire movie is just their adventure across their back lawn is, like, a really cool concept where it's like, oh shit, like in my mind, I never wrapped my head around like, oh my god, this is literally just them crossing their back lawn and it's just like crazy shit that they didn't know was there. In a movie like this, from like however long ago this was now, this was like almost 30 years old, you would think that the camera tricks to make people look small next to big things would feel dated, but they really did a pretty good job. Like, like the forced perspective stuff actually still looks good. And then, like, combine that with, like, the practical giant effect stuff, like building a giant Oreo cookie or, like, building, like, a giant Lego piece. Like, it all works really well. There's not a part that looks, like, cheesy and disingenuous in the whole movie, which is really impressive to me.
I agree.
This movie is just, like, I can't say anything bad about it, Like, it's not, again, it's not something that I would sit down and watch of my own volition, but I'm not upset about watching it. It washes over you. It's like an adult. As a kid, I feel like, when our nephew is old enough to start taking in movies more than, he's in love with the fucking Yogi Bear movie right now, and he watches it once a day. His parents fucking hate it. But when he starts to, have his personality developing and we can have conversations about what's happening on the screen, I feel like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is just going to be a brain melter of a movie for him,
So I read a thing that was talking about how Disney were marketing geniuses when it came to putting out this movie because of two things that they did. Was that earlier this year was when Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out. And, like, Roger Rabbit was blowing up. So they quickly commissioned a Roger Rabbit short that played before.
I remember that.
It's on the front of the VHS that I have of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and it was like that alone, like bringing people who wanted more Roger Rabbit, we're going to go see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids just for that. But then they were like, it was actually a smart strategic move. They were a movie that benefited by coming out the same weekend as Batman because this was like at a time where you couldn't buy your tickets online, so you'd show up at the theater, and if Batman was sold out and you were there with your kids, it was the next best option to go see. So it was like a smooth second place to Batman for like weeks as like the alternate to like when you bring your whole family of 7 people to see a movie and it's sold out and you're like, well, shit, I guess we'll see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at 2.
For a second there, I was like, who the fuck has a family of 7? Then I was like, oh, there are 6 Kellys.
The Kellys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's talk about some of the effects. What are some of like the effects that still stand out for you?
Ants!
I mean, that the ant and the ant scorpion fight is fucking awesome.
And the pollen, dude, the pollen is just...
It looks so good. It looks like it's such a good effect. I do highly recommend. I don't recommend the whole show Prop Culture. I mean, if you're into movie props, it's definitely worth watching.
I'm only going to be interested in that if they do one on Shopping Mall.
But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, but the episode on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, they go to the stop motion effects team and they still have the stop motion figures for the ant and the scorpion, and it's just cool seeing them still like 3 decades after they were used. Really, it's so funny because like special effects when it comes to stop motion special effects, they have not changed 1 ounce from like watching Jason the Argonauts and Clash of the Titans. Like it's the exact same effects, but I love them. I love watching that stuff. There's even a couple, like, I forgot how many good lines are in this movie. There's a scene with the big bee, which I kind of forgot about the bee sequence until it happened. But
what?
Yeah, I don't know why. I remembered the ant and the scorpion. I forgot about the bee. It separates the kids for a little bit, and the neighbor's like, well, I know we're still in your yard at least. The kid's like, how do you know that? He goes, any other yard would have shorter grass. And it's like this great callback to like all of the jokes that they've been making about how the Selinskys just do not cut their grass, even though they have a remote control lawnmower, which if I had a remote control lawnmower as a kid, I would be cutting the grass every other day. Just like from the couch watching Saturday morning cartoons just watching it happen. And that's like talking about like this year. I'd be cutting the grass watching Saturday morning cartoons from the couch.
Yeah, we know.
You were talking about Matt Fuller and how good
Matt Frewer.
Frewer. Max Headroom himself.
Yeah.
And how funny and entertaining he is in this movie. And the part that kills me the most watching it is him and his buddy doing their little secret fishing handshake from like the house to the RV. The first time they do it is hilarious, but it's when they give the sad wave goodbye. Oh God. He is so well cast in this film. And there's like if you go on the IMDb trivia, there's like a million different trivia points of like he was only 10 years older than the kid who played his oldest son.
Oh Jesus,
like,
really?
Yeah, like he was young. He was like in his, I would say like late 20s, early 30s
Matt
when they were
Frewer?
shooting it. Yeah.
Because Max Headroom was 84, right?
Yeah, I think he just aged like a bag of milk.
Well, here one thing I want to say about Matt Frewer, which I think is very interesting, is the fact that we're listening to an episode of Criminal, I want to say, and they were talking about the time that that Chicago TV station got hacked in like 1987 or something.
That footage is so uncomfortable
It is really,
for some reason.
It's really uncomfortable. But they got Matt fucking Frewer on the phone for the episode. It was super cool because I was like, he lives. He's still fucking alive.
Have you ever seen that footage, Brian?
No.
It's really weird. It was like these two guys, they never found them, but they were driving around in a van dressed like Max Headroom, and they were just intercepting television signals and broadcasting weird messages that were all like distorted and fucked up.
It's like a fever dream.
Yeah, like they interrupted the news and they interrupted an episode of Doctor Who that was playing on PBS.
It wasn't the news. It was a baseball game and then Doctor Who. Sorry. Yeah.
Wait, the guy kind of looked like the lead singer in Psychotic Symphony.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I think I did see that.
Yeah.
I think I did see that.
And it's one of those like quote unquote true crime cases where it's like the stakes are so low, but I'm so invested. Like I want to know why. Who were these people? What was their message? Were they just bored? How did they figure out how to do this? Like it's just insane. Matt Frewer has a really great visual gag in this movie that I didn't get as a kid, but I love as an adult, where he has this heroic moment where the whole movie he's kind of just being an asshole to everybody. But then when it comes time to unshrink the kids, he's like, I'm not letting you test that out on my kid. And he kind of sacrifices himself in case the machine blows him up. But when he gets back to normal size, his wife hands him back his hat, and suddenly his hat is way bigger on his head than it's been the whole movie. The scene where they're trying to decide how to, like, they're explaining to them about the kids being shrunk also has probably the best Rick Moranis delivery in the whole movie, where he's like, are you trying to tell me that machine blew up our kids? And he's like, no. If it blew them up, there'd be pieces of them everywhere. I mean, I really do enjoy this movie. There's one scene that I could have done without, and like, if that's all I've got, then whatever. But like the scene where the dog accidentally tangles up Rick Moranis and he's like spinning around in the room and then flies off into the neighbor's yard is just so cartoony in a movie that kind of plays in the world of realism, like realistic fantasy the rest of the film. It like bothered me.
Very weird nitpick.
Were either of you ever like scared or like unnerved by anything in this movie when you were a kid?
No.
There was a weird unnerving thing. This is a weird explanation to answer to your question, but there was something that unnerved me about the movie when I was a kid, but I don't know what it is now. Because, like, the two times I've watched it as an adult, I always thought that it was maybe, like, the kids swimming in the bowl of Cheerios.
So I was going to say that's the part that bothered me. That was the part as a kid that bothered me, because you have to remember that if this came out in 89, I was probably I was 4 when they were advertising it. And that was in the movie trailer that played on TV, was the shot of him stuck in a Cheerio about to be eaten, screaming, "Please don't eat me." And like, that's how they ended the trailer. And I was like, if you watch some of the old advertisements for this, it feels like it's advertising a Charlie Band movie. Like, so much of this feels like Disney produces a Chucky B film. That scene, like, I was like, oh my God, that kid's gonna get eaten. Like, I couldn't figure out any way that kid survives that moment. So, like, until I actually saw the movie as a kid, I was convinced that a child gets eaten by his father.
You know what's weird is, like, as a child, I fully understood that I was watching a movie, and like me as a kid, I would watch and just be like, nothing would give me anxiety because I'm like, they're going to be okay at the end. And now I'm like 30 and I'm like, oh, I don't think James Bond's going to make it out of this one.
But yeah, I mean, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, solid flick. I'm glad that it won. I mean, I would have been content with us talking about Fired Up or Not Another Teen Movie. It was probably the lowest stakes that we've ever had on one of these because it was a victory for us no matter what won. But
I'm throwing, whether it's a throwaway vote, Fired Up is coming up every 6 months until it wins.
I mean, I'm all about talking about that movie. All right, so I'm trying to think what my double feature with this would actually be. And you know what? I made a reference to it. Fuck it. I'll go with Jason and the Argonauts. Why not? Stop motion. Just keep the stop motion train moving.
I would pair this with Mousetrap. And I don't know why. It's just what came to my mind.
I forgot about... Or do you mean Mouse Hunt?
Yeah, Mouse Hunt with Nathan Lane.
You are such a Nathan Lane head. Like, it is so fucking weird because you're like, oh, that was a birdcage reference. And I'm like... Oh. Like...
I pierced the toast!
I'm gonna go with fucking From Beyond. Because if we're going with the Stuart Gordon flick... I'm going to go with something that actually disturbs me, and it's got a sci-fi ray in it as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I'm just going to say this up front. I'm under the impression that anything that we have that we watch this week that we want to talk about, we're perfectly fine just tabling for a little bit to just talk about how great the Mandalorian Season 2 was.
Yeah.
Dude. And here's the thing. I'm going to put this up front.
I want to put massive spoilers ahead because I want to talk to you two about it.
No.
This is going to be spoiler-filled, so if you have not watched Season 2, bye.
Yeah. And I'm under the impression that, like, yes, we're recording this the day after the finale, but it's coming out 2 to 3 weeks after the finale. And, like, come on now. If you've been avoiding spoilers successfully for 3 weeks and you get it from horror movie night, that's on you at that point. Like the internet was just a minefield yesterday. So, like... That's on you at this point. But yes, we are going to be talking about specifically the final episode, but the whole series real quick. But man, I think I liked it better than the first season. I'm going to put that out there right now.
Well,
for sure.
I mean, I think that this season had one less good episode. Because I feel like there was only one kind of stinker in season 1. I think there were 2 that kind of just didn't do much for me except move the story along in season 2. But that's not saying much because you get fucking Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, you get like so many amazing things, and then of course, I mean, if we're gonna say what we really get at the very end of the season,
well, and that's so. Someone posted something that I really appreciated on Facebook the other day that said, like, "Fuck you if you're gonna spoil the last scene of The Mandalorian." Because Disney managed to do the impossible and keep huge things under wraps in a day and age where everything is spoiled for us in the news outlets weeks before things happen. So, like, you're just being an asshole at that point.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like... Yeah. Like, they did so much work to keep the last, like, I would say the last 10 minutes of this episode completely secretive. And to just, like... watch it first thing in the morning and be like, OMG, I can't believe that this happened. Like, you're an asshole. There's ways to show that you enjoyed it without saying what it was that happened that you enjoyed.
Yeah. I do like how this season, I feel like they threw it out. It was like throwing shit at a wall. They're like, all right, let's give Baby Yoda a name. Nah, that didn't go over. No one really cared. We're just going to go back to the child. He was called Grago like once, and then it's just like, you know what? We're not going to acknowledge that anymore.
No, but that's the thing is that Grogu comes back up a couple times. I mean, I don't think that you're correct in that assertion because also, I mean, and I am so sick of people. This might seem like a tangent, but it does make sense here. I'm so sick of adult men fucking negging and gatekeeping other adult men for being on TikTok. Because, TikTok is fun as fuck. It's what you make it. Like, I don't post anything, but I go on there and my For You page is literally dogs doing funny shit, talking birds, and Star Wars. It's literally all it is. And I've curated it to be that way. The algorithm knows what I want and it gives it to me. But one of the funniest things is, like, there's the sound from that episode after Ahsoka tells Mando what the child's name is. He goes, Grogu, and the child goes, oh. and people are doing that with, like, putting that sound over, like, dogs when they, like, ask dogs their name and the dog goes, oh. And it is the fucking best.
And Brian, to kind of correct something that you said, and it's only because this was, like, something I learned in the last month, and it's, you know how, like, there's things that you probably already knew, but, like, hearing someone verbalize it, you're like, oh. So Jason and Ashley from Geek History Lesson did an hour-long, like, AMA on their Facebook Live. And someone had asked Jason, because he works for DC Universe and helped produce a ton of the DC original shows, what is a writer's room like when the audience rejects a concept that you've done? And he was like, the reality is this, like, sci-fi fantasy shows, you have to film that like a year in advance.
Yeah.
So by the time that the internet bitches about something, you're like, well, tough, because like that's what it is.
The best thing that probably took a bunch of fucking neckbeards out of the story is in the last episode when we have 4 female protagonists just destroying stormtroopers. Because like Megan and I are watching it, and she's like screaming, she's having such a good time, and I turn to her and I go, "Do you know how many angry Star Wars fans there are right now? Like, because they hate women." Like, the most toxic fandom is Star Wars.
I mean, let's not just leave it at Star Wars. I would say, as much as I love being part of Geekscape and I love being part of geek culture is a very toxic, like, the comic book fans, like, that whole little, like, Venn diagram is very toxic, which is what I do love about Geekscape and Horror Movie Night and really the rest of that general family under Geekscape, is that we've managed to kind of gatekeep out the toxic people.
Which is crazy. Because, like, you'd think that our podcast, of all podcasts on Geekscape, would have the worst fucking fans. I mean, fans as in listeners. I hate the word fan. Yeah. But, yeah, our people are awesome. It's just amazing. Yeah. But the thing that's just so funny because, like, Jon Favreau, specifically, as the showrunner, had to be like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to set this up where Boba Fett, like, helps and then fucks right off.
Yeah.
Ming-Na Wen is such a fucking badass. And also a really cool thing about that last episode is that the guy who is on that ship that they get the scientist off of, the one who has the gun to that scientist's head, he was on the last season of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Ming-Na Wen was Melinda May. And so they actually played alongside each other in, like, 2 shows in 1 year, which is pretty fucking cool to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that Jon Favreau is just, I mean, he's every, like, true Star Wars fan's hero right now, because it's like...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think I was trying to explain The Mandalorian to somebody, and I was like, here's the thing that The Mandalorian does really, really well, and this is going to lead very beautifully into the final scene, but, like, The Mandalorian has been the first Star Wars entity to really be smart and say, hey, we've built this entire galaxy of billions of worlds and characters. Why do we only care about what's happening with the Skywalkers all the time?
Well, that was a big thing that they were complaining about, you know, like in episodes 7, 8, and 9. But, like, the thing is that people all want to see, like, Knights of the Old Republic. They all want that. But the thing is that, like, of the thousands of years that are happening with of the actual Star Wars universe that they've done with the expanded universe and all that bullshit, like, they also have to think about the money that they're going to make, you know? And so, like, when we had Boba Fett show the fuck up and actually claim the right to be a total badass, because I have always thought that Boba Fett was super overrated, you know?
Oh, for sure.
But then in that second to last episode when he just destroys a bunch of awesome, like he just kills it. He's so good. It's like awesome, and that makes sense that they're like, that's fan service, but it's also justifying that fan service almost. But like, if they're going to be putting $1 billion into a movie or whatever they're gonna, or a series, or however much it costs to do, a season of The Mandalorian, yeah, it needs to be tangentially related to fucking Skywalker, because no one gives. I mean, it's hard enough to have like Grogu, Ahsoka.
Mando himself. Really.
Yeah, like he's an unknown character, and so like the fact that they've got that to work is wild.
Yeah, I
do have a question, and I don't know if anyone knows. I'm just curious. Is Boba Fett just another clone?
No, that is the Boba Fett.
So he survived.
He crawled out of the
fell into the snake.
Yeah, he crawled out of the Snarkle pit.
Snarkle?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sarlacc. Oh my god. Dude, you better edit this so you don't sound stupid, because people are gonna come after us. You know what Star Wars fans are like.
I'll let it sit. I don't care. Come at me. But to talk about what you were saying with Skywalker, like, I get what you're saying, and I do agree with that. But I'm going to use, as I tend to do, a wrestling analogy here. But like, the biggest problem that people see a lot of the time with the WWE right now is that they keep bringing back wrestlers from the 80s and 90s that are like household names all the time, which is great for like a ratings bump for sure. But from like a business standpoint, like, if you're not building, like, instead of bringing The Rock and Stone Cold back every year for shit, you should be building the new version of The Rock and Stone Cold so that you can keep moving when they're like 80 and physically can't do anything anymore. And like, we're getting to a point where like it's a bummer, but like a lot of the people that we connect, like, we're not going to accept a different person playing Luke Skywalker. We're not going to accept a different actress playing Princess Leia. And like, to a certain point, we're going to only be able to deal with like hologram people so many times. So like, you do have to start establishing, if you want Star Wars to be this franchise that lasts for hundreds of years, which it has the ability to, you do need to start building a whole new
Is this going to be
generation
the Bible?
Of icons.
Is this what?
Yes.
Is Star Wars going to become the Bible?
I mean, it already kind of is.
Yeah, and we, like, Star Wars, we don't give enough credit because, like, Marvel movies are dope, but they have a lot more flexibility with continuity, because it's like, oh, that's X-Men, but this is X-Men Next Gen. Like, they have so many different storylines for all of their comics where, like, Star Wars is one fucking universe. There's one universe of Star Wars. So trying to stick with the continuity and, like, getting excited, like, because that's all I'm thinking about is, like, you guys know Star Wars better than me, but who trains Baby Yoda?
Well, obviously, it is Luke.
Yeah, that's
but
Luke.
I thought Ben Solo was his first student.
No, he had
No, Ben Solo was his last student.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
I thought Ben Solo was his first, and then he started the school with Ben.
I mean, this
Ben
does
turned
take.
evil.
I mean,
I don't know.
Keep in mind, this takes place post Return
It's
of
2
the Jedi.
years after Return.
Yeah.
So theoretically, he could have been starting the school for Ben. Like, there's a way that you can logically.
Well, Ben would have been
into existence.
2 fucking years old. Like, I'm pretty sure that Han and Leia, bopped and kicked that kid out. Like, he was conceived the night of Yub Nub. Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yub Nub was the soundtrack to the lovemaking.
I will say, and I know it wouldn't work because at the end of the day, Star Wars are feel-good movies, but it would be pretty dope if Mandalorian failed, lost Baby Yoda, and then the next trilogy, he's 800 years old, and it is an Empire fucking Yoda that they have to battle. That would be so fucking dope.
The big thing that we're kind of we've pussyfooted around the big stuff, so we're just gonna get right into it. But like, yes, it's a special effect of Luke Skywalker from the end of Return.
That good. I will.
It doesn't.
Doesn't.
It doesn't look that good at all. But man, if I didn't feel something in my heart when he walked out there, and I was just like, my old friend is back.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like.
Well,
it moves you.
Did you know who it was before he took off? Before the door opened? Because
I had a feeling.
I was like, who? So I kept forgetting what the timeline was. So I was like, there was part of me that was like, is this going to be Adam Driver? Like, there was like a part of me that thought it was going to be like young Ben Solo before he like
Went to the
turns
dark side,
evil.
yeah.
But then when that hood came off, I was like, oh my fuck, it's Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, mine was like, I was like, oh my god, it's Obi-Wan. Wait, he's long dead. Ah!
It's funny because Megan was like, is it Obi? And I'm like, no. And she's like, oh, of course not. She was like, wait, when does this take place? I was like, 2 years after Return. And she was like, who could it be? I'm like, well, look at the black glove, right hand, and the green saber. It's Luke. It's Luke. It's Luke.
Yeah.
Because I was like, he's the only Jedi left. And she was like, oh, okay.
But let's talk about the post credits because I mean,
Ooh.
I feel like I speak for all three of us when we say that Jabba's palace is the ultimate set piece of the Star Wars universe.
Oh, yeah, way better than the cantina, even though that's like the go-to.
Yeah, like you walk in there, you've got Bib Futana.
Bib Fortuna. Hey, Jabba the Hutt. But fat as fuck.
Yeah, he's just becoming the new Jabba the Hutt, like just this new crime lord. And then just, Boba Fett rocking in there and just like, you motherfucker. Like,
yeah, it's so fire.
and then he frees the slave girl. Like, it's like, man, you hit all of the right things that you needed to set up this book of Boba Fett.
And he didn't say one fucking thing. That's what's so cool about it.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you guys my one wish, and I was hoping for it season 2. It didn't happen. I'm hoping in the upcoming seasons of The Mandalorian it happens. I need John's storytelling to involve Darth Maul so bad.
Well,
he's still alive.
No, not by the time Return comes around. I don't think. I'm pretty sure that if you watch Clone Wars, because he's one of Ahsoka's big adversaries, I believe. Yeah, he gets cut in half, but he survives because of how powerful the dark side of the Force is. I only know this because I asked my buddy Johnny.
I read because he was my favorite, so I've read up on him. And the fact that this is his story, I'm just tell you a piece of his story, and that it's told through a children's cartoon pisses me off. He gets cut in half. He lives by eating rats in the bottom of that hole.
Oh, shit.
And now half of his body is robot. The bottom half of his body is robot.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
You could do such a badass, dark, fucking, Mandalorian style Darth Maul. But and I loved him so much that I was like, I'm going to watch Clone Wars. And then 4 episodes in, the comic relief of the clones, I'm just like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I've tried Clone Wars and Rebels, and I'm having the hardest time. I'd much rather just read Wikipedia and get caught up,
Well, but you're bringing up a good point too, because what we're saying there is I know that people shit on these books all the time, but I think that these are my 3 favorite Star Wars books ever. Are the Tales of Jabba's Palace,
yes!
the Tales of the Bounty Hunters, and the Tales of the Cantina.
Wait. Tales of the Cantina. That's the one I loved.
Yeah. But all 3 of those books do this amazing job of taking these characters that look cool but don't do shit in the movies and giving them amazing backstories where you're like, well, I want to watch the fact. Here's my wish. There's a lot of wishes that are floating around right now, especially after Disney. Well, because Disney just dropped
9 new Star Wars titles. Holy fuck!
They just had the press conference to save people from not unsubscribing to Disney Plus. Essentially,
dude. The thing is that I was gonna let it lapse, and then after Mando season 2, but now I it's. Give me that drug. I feel like you guys.
That's what they did. Yeah. So here's the big wish, because the big thing that I'm looking forward to on the Marvel side of things is them doing the What If animated series, because I just love a good goofy anthology series for Marvel, and I want to see that in the Star Wars universe. Give us Tales from Jabba's Palace, the show. So give us those shows.
They already have a lot of those character those outfits because they showed up in Mando.
Yeah. So it's what I'm hoping. That's my big pitch. Disney, I know you're listening, so please.
We all pay for Disney Plus. They need to listen to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So guys, this is our first episode of 2021. As you can tell, we're 6.5 years at this point. We're fucking over trying to pretend to be cool. We're gonna let our geek colors fly even more than ever before. Half of this episode was us just talking about Star Wars.
It's Star Wars movie night.
But thank you guys so much for checking it out. And you know what? I gave a couple shout outs, but this year we're really harping the fact that Horror Movie Night is part of the Geekscape Network. The Geekscape Network is honestly one of the best podcast networks out there, and it's not just because I helped build it over the last 15 years, but it has the fact that it's a network that's survived for 15 years is why it's one of the best podcast networks out there. So go on Geekscape.net and look at like the insane roster of shows and find some that you want to check out that grabs your attention. There's a ton of great ones between, past guests that we've had on here. Robert Bacon with 91 Donkey Lane. We've got Joe from Fright School's MFK Ultimate Podcast. We've got Bingetown TV, like I mentioned. There's a new show that I will be on the first episode of that'll probably be out by the time this drops, called I Love Trash with Marie Maloney, where she talks about trashy television and like shitty movies. I was on there talking about Princess Switch 2, The Switched Again. But we've got a ton of great horror content right here at Horror Movie Night, and we're kicking it off with... Oh. Okay, so in the coming years, we're going to have some great horror content.
Yeah, but it's your fault.
I stand by my pick. So we will be back next week with more Horror Movie Night.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.